Nkemdolu village is quiet tonight. Only the distant calls of market women selling their last fruits echo through the village. Cooking fires crackle in small compounds, sending smoke into the dark sky. But deeper beyond the mud houses and palm trees, the Akpulu forest vibrates with something different. Talking drum rhythms drift through the night air like whispers from another world. The villagers know this sound well. When the drums return, it means the ancestral spirits are walking under the forest canopy. Old people say the drums are calling, choosing someone to join them in the darkness. Obinna stands outside his family's hut, his young ears catching every beat. The moon hangs full above him, casting silver light on the red earth. He hears neighbors whispering behind closed doors, "Nwokima warned us." When drums summon, the unseen answer. A cold shiver runs down Obinna's spine. But instead of fear, he feels something else. Curiosity. The drums seem to be calling his name with each rhythmic beat. He knows he should go inside, lock the door, and pray like everyone else. But something deep inside him wants to follow that sound into the forest. Obinna is not like the other boys in Nkemdolu. While they play football in the dusty village square, he sits by the old radio listening to news from Lagos. He writes letters to big companies in the city, dreaming of a life beyond palm wine tapping and groundnut selling. Every evening, he asks questions that make the elders uncomfortable. Why do only the chiefs have money? He asks his father. Why must we always beg the spirits to help our farms? His mother sells groundnuts at the village market, counting coins every night. His father climbs palm trees, collecting wine drop by drop. Their life never changes. But Obinna wants more. He dreams of cars, big houses, and city lights. He imagines himself in fancy clothes, speaking English to important people. The village feels too small for his big dreams. Elder Nwokima, whose face is lined with wrinkles like dried riverbeds, often shakes his head when he sees Obinna. The forest speaks in riddles, boy, the old man warns. Some ears never return from listening to its voice. But Obinna only smiles. He believes he is smarter than the old stories. He thinks tradition is just fear dressed up in ancient words. This is the third night the drums have played. Each beat seems louder than before, echoing through the village like a heartbeat. Village children stop their games early and run home to their mothers. Women lock their doors tight and whisper prayers to Amadioha, the god of thunder and protection. But the drumming calls to Obinna like a sweet song. It promises answers to all his questions. It whispers of power and knowledge hidden in the darkness. His mother, sensing his restlessness, presses warm kola nuts into his hands. "Stay inside tonight, my son," she begs. This forest takes more than it gives. Many young men have followed those drums and never came back. But ambition burns bright in Obinna's eyes. The drums grow louder, more insistent. They seem to be speaking directly to him, promising everything he has ever wanted. When the compound grows quiet and his parents fall asleep, Obinna makes his choice. He slips past the wooden door of his family's hut. His bare feet touch the cool red earth as he walks toward the forest edge. The drums guide him like a lighthouse guides ships in the dark. The path into Akpulu forest is narrow and twisted. Tall palm trees bend over him like giant arms, their leaves whispering secrets in the night wind. Shadows dance between the trees, and strange sounds echo from the darkness. Then, like a ghost appearing from mist, a man steps onto the path. It is Matsi Aika, the palm wine tapper who disappeared 7 years ago. The village had searched for weeks but never found him. Everyone assumed he was dead. But here he stands, looking exactly the same as the day he vanished. His smile is crooked, and his eyes flicker with a strange fire that seems to come from another world. "You still hunger for more, boy?" Matsi Aika asks, his voice like dry leaves rustling. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a split kola nut. One half is deep red like blood, the other is black as midnight. "Choose," he says, holding both pieces toward Obinna. "Swallow only one, and you choose your fate. The red brings knowledge and power. The black brings wisdom and patience. But remember, boy, once you choose, there is no turning back." Obinna stares at the kola nut halves, his heart pounding like the drums that still echo through the trees. The drumming grows stronger, more complex. The rhythms weave together like voices having a conversation. Obinna hears whispers forming words in the darkness. "We see your hunger, we know your ambition, we can give you what you seek." It feels like the forest itself is speaking to him. The trees seem to lean closer, listening to his thoughts. Without hesitation, Obinna grabs the red half of the kola nut and swallows it quickly. The taste is bitter and sharp, but immediately warmth floods through his chest. His temples begin to tingle, and his vision shimmers like heat waves rising from hot ground. Suddenly, he can see things that were hidden before. Glowing figures move between the trees like dancers made of light. They wear a strange mix of traditional masks and modern clothes, as if they exist in both the old world and the new world at the same time. The forest changes around him. Mist rises from the ground, forming a corridor that leads deeper into the darkness. The glowing spirits beckon him forward with graceful hand movements. Obinna feels power flowing through his veins. This is what he has always wanted. This is his chance to become more than a village boy. The spirits are showing him the path to greatness. When dawn breaks over Nkemdolu village, Obinna is nowhere to be found. His sleeping mat is empty, his sandals gone. His mother discovers his absence when she goes to wake him for morning prayers. Her screams pierce the quiet morning air. My son is missing." She runs to the forest edge, banging on tree trunks with her fists, calling his name until her voice becomes hoarse. The village mobilizes quickly. Men grab machetes and torches. Women light candles and burn incense. Children are kept inside while the adults search every path, every clearing, every stream. But the forest gives no answers. No footprints, no torn clothes, no sign that Obinna ever existed. It is as if the earth simply swallowed him whole. The villagers gather in the evening, their faces grim. They light oil lamps and chant "Ndu" to the ancestors, begging forgiveness for whatever brought this trouble upon them. Elder Nkemdolu stands in the center of the crowd, his walking stick tapping against the ground. Akpulu has taken him, he announces solemnly. The boy was too eager to listen to voices that should remain unheard. The village mourns. Mothers hold their children closer. Fathers speak in hushed tones about the dangers of defying tradition. 3 days pass like 3 years. Obinna's mother refuses to eat, sitting by the forest edge from sunrise to sunset. His father drinks palm wine to numb the pain, but nothing helps. Then, on the third morning, just as the roosters begin their dawn songs, something moves at the forest edge. A figure stumbles out from between the trees, walking like a person learning to use their legs for the first time. It is Obinna. Dirt covers his clothes, and his feet are cut from walking on thorns. His eyes are wide and strange, like moonlight trapped in water. He looks like someone who has seen things that human eyes should never see. His mother screams with joy and runs toward him. My son has returned." She wraps her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. The entire village gathers, amazed that the forest has given back what it took. But when Obinna opens his mouth to speak, something is wrong. His lips move, but no sound comes out. Only breath escapes, only silence. He tries again and again, his face showing panic and confusion. The forest gave him back to his family. But it kept something precious in return. His voice is gone, stolen by the spirits who answered his call for power. In the days that follow, the villagers notice that Obinna has returned different. He cannot speak, but when he looks into people's eyes, it seems like he can see their deepest secrets. When Uncle Chijioke comes to visit and lies about borrowing money from their family fund, Obinna simply tilts his head and stares. Within minutes, Chijioke begins sweating and confessing his theft, even though no words were spoken. At night, Obinna draws strange symbols in the sand outside their hut. The markings look like Nkemdolu writing, but no elder recognizes the patterns. They seem to pulse with their own energy, glowing faintly in the darkness. Children who once teased Obinna for his big city dreams now watch him with nervous respect. Adults whisper when he passes, wondering what powers the forest has given him in exchange for his voice. His mother watches him constantly, trying to understand the changes in her son. He moves differently now, as if he is listening to sounds that no one else can hear. Sometimes he turns his head sharply, responding to calls that exist only in his transformed mind. The village begins to realize that Obinna did not simply lose his voice in the forest. He gained something else, something that makes people uncomfortable and afraid. Strange things begin happening around Obinna. When he traces patterns in water on the ground, dark clouds gather overhead within hours. When he taps his fingers 3 times against any surface, wind swirls through the compound, moving in directions that make no sense. The village children stop laughing at him. Instead, they watch from safe distances, whispering about the boy who came back from the forest with powers that belong to spirits, not humans. Elder women begin leaving small offerings at the steps of his family's hut. Kola nuts, palm oil, white chalk, and cowrie shells appear every morning, gifts meant to honor whatever force now lives inside Obinna. But the most unsettling power is how he affects people's behavior. When the village chief tries to cheat farmers during harvest negotiations, Obinna simply appears at the meeting. He says nothing, but his presence makes the chief so nervous that he offers fair prices without being asked. Market women find themselves telling the truth about their measurements when Obinna walks past their stalls. Children confess their mischief to their parents without being questioned. It is as if his lost voice has been replaced with something more powerful. The ability to make others speak their hidden truths, whether they want to or not. Obinna's mother no longer sleeps peacefully. She lies awake at night, listening to her son move around their hut like a restless spirit. She watches him trace invisible symbols on the mud walls, his fingers moving in patterns that make her skin crawl. His hands twitch constantly now, especially when people lie near him. Sometimes she catches him staring at nothing, nodding as if someone is speaking to him in the silence. One night, fear drives her to seek answers. She lights 7 candles and walks to the hut of Ezenwanyi, the village seer. The old woman reads cowrie shells and palm nuts, interpreting messages from the spirit world. Ezenwanyi takes one look at the shells after hearing about Obinna and gasps. Her hands shake as she gathers the sacred objects quickly. "Your son did not return alone," she whispers, her voice filled with fear. "He came back with 2 spirits sharing one body. One spirit wants to help him, but the other wants to use him." She grabs Obinna's mother by the shoulders. "He is fighting a war inside himself that no human should fight. If the wrong spirit wins, you will lose him forever, even though his body remains." The candles flicker as if something invisible moves through the room. Elder Nkemdolu, who had been exiled from the village council years ago for opposing corrupt decisions, returns carrying a walking stick carved from ancient bone. His gray wrapper flutters in the wind as he approaches Obinna's family compound. The villagers gather to watch, surprised to see the old man who had been banished for speaking too much truth to powerful people. Nkemdolu enters the hut without permission and kneels beside Obinna. He places his weathered hand on the boy's forehead and closes his eyes, as if reading invisible writing on his skin. He mutters after several minutes. The child drank from the spring of knowing without having the patience to understand what he was swallowing. He wanted power, but power without wisdom is a curse disguised as a gift. He turns to Obinna's mother, his ancient eyes filled with sadness. Your son stands at a crossroads between two worlds. He has abilities that could help people or destroy them. But he does not yet know how to control what lives inside him. The old man taps his bone walking stick against the ground 3 times. You must prepare him for what is coming. Or you will lose him completely to the forces that answered his call. Outside, storm clouds gather even though the morning had been clear. The first sign of real danger comes quietly. Obinna, struggling with his new abilities, picks up a piece of broken calabash and scratches a name into its surface, Ifani. He does not mean anything by it. He is simply practicing the strange symbols that flow through his mind. But the next day, Ifani, a young farmer known for his strength and health, drowns while bathing in the village stream. The water was shallow, the current gentle. No one understands how such a strong swimmer could die in water that barely reaches his waist. 3 days later, Obinna's restless fingers trace another name in the sand, Ngozi. The marks appear without his conscious thought, as if something else guides his hand. Ngozi dies that week from a snake bite, even though the village healer treated her quickly with the right medicine. Then comes Chibuzo, whose name appears in Obinna's sand drawings. He dies from a fever that lasts only 1 day. Azuka's name appears next. He dies falling from a palm tree he had climbed safely hundreds of times before. Obinna begins to understand the terrible truth. His fingers are writing death sentences. He tries desperately to erase the names, sweeping away the sand, washing the calabash pieces clean. But the marks always return, as if carved by invisible hands. After the death of Chief Ezenwa's eldest son, whose name had appeared in Obinna's drawings, the village council calls an emergency meeting. The chief's face is twisted with grief and rage as he stands before the gathered villagers. This boy is cursed. Chief Ezenwa shouts, pointing toward Obinna's compound. He is a danger to every person in Nkemdolu. My son was healthy and strong. Now he is dead, and his name was found written in that cursed boy's sand. The villagers murmur among themselves. Some nod in agreement, fear making them seek someone to blame. Others remember the offerings they left at Obinna's door and worry about angering whatever force protects him. We must exile him before he kills us all, the chief continues. Send him back to the forest where he belongs. But just as the council prepares to vote on Obinna's fate, something impossible happens. The talking drums begin to sound again, but this time they play in broad daylight. The rhythms echo across the village like thunder, silencing every voice. All eyes turn toward the forest, where shadows seem to be moving against the direction of the sun. Even Chief Ezenwa's anger falters as the supernatural makes itself known in the world of the living. From the forest edge, a figure appears that makes every person in the village fall to their knees. It is a masquerade, but not like any they have seen during festivals. This one stands twice as tall as a normal man, backlit by a golden haze that seems to come from another world. His feet do not touch the ground as he glides toward the village square. Beneath his carved wooden mask, eyes glow like burning coals. His wrapper is woven from materials that shift between traditional raffia and fabrics that seem to be made of light itself. This is Agubba, the ancestral guardian of Akpulu forest. He is the spirit who decides who may enter his domain and who may leave. Without speaking, Agubba places a clay gourd in front of Obinna, then taps the ground once with a staff that appears to be carved from living wood. The earth trembles at his touch. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, the spirit guardian vanishes, leaving only the scent of ancient smoke and the memory of power that human minds cannot fully understand. No one in the village moves. No one speaks. They all understand that they have witnessed something sacred and terrible, something that connects their small world to forces older than memory. The gourd sits before Obinna like a question waiting to be answered. That evening, with trembling hands, Obinna opens the clay gourd that Agubba left for him. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, lies a smooth black stone that seems to pulse with its own heartbeat. The surface reflects no light, as if it absorbs everything that touches it. The moment his fingers make contact with the stone, knowledge floods through him like lightning. Memories that are not his own fill his mind, showing him the truth of what happened in the forest. He remembers now what he had forgotten in his hunger for power. He had not chosen just the red half of the kola nut. In his greed and desperation, he had grabbed both pieces and swallowed them quickly, hoping to gain both knowledge and wisdom without earning either. The red half gave him supernatural abilities, but the black half demanded a price that he was not prepared to pay. By taking both, he had broken an ancient law that governs the balance between the human world and the spirit world. He was not chosen by the forest spirits. He had stolen what was not freely given. The stone shows him images of other young men who had made similar mistakes throughout the centuries. All of them had paid terrible prices for their greed, and now their spirits serve as warnings to others who might follow the same path. That night, unable to sleep, Obinna walks to the village stream to splash cool water on his burning forehead. But when he looks down at his reflection in the moonlit water, terror grips his heart. Another boy stares back at him from beneath the surface. The reflection looks exactly like him, but moves independently. While Obinna raises his right hand, the reflection raises its left. When Obinna steps back, the reflection steps forward. The boy in the water opens his mouth and speaks silently, and somehow Obinna can read the words on his lips, "You left me there." The truth hits him like a physical blow. When he swallowed both halves of the kola nut, the forest spirit split his soul in two. Part of him returned to the village with supernatural powers, but part of him remained trapped in the spirit world, hungry and angry. The deaths in the village are not caused by his powers alone. His other half, the part of his soul still trapped in Akpulu forest, is reaching through the barrier between worlds to drag others back with him. Obinna tries to scream, but of course, no sound comes from his throat. Only his reflection in the water screams back at him, the sound echoing from a world he cannot reach. He realizes now that he is not just cursed. He is incomplete, fighting a war with himself across two different worlds. The supernatural sea. Conflict inside Obinna begins to affect the physical world around him. Cracks appear in the mud walls of his family's compound overnight, spreading like spider webs across every surface. Their chickens refuse to come near him, squawking and flapping their wings in terror whenever he approaches. The palm trees in their yard begin to wither, their leaves turning yellow despite the rainy season. His mother finds their cooking pot broken every morning, no matter how carefully she stores it at night. The metal cracks in perfect circles, as if something invisible strikes it repeatedly while they sleep. Obinna begins sleepwalking, moving through the village at night while his body remains asleep. He draws chalk marks on every doorway, symbols that hurt people's eyes to look at directly. Under each marking, he writes the same message in shaky letters, "I'm coming home." But the terrifying question haunts everyone who sees the words, if Obinna is already here, what part of him is trying to come home? Neighbors report seeing him in two places at once. Standing in his family's compound while simultaneously walking past their windows. The impossible sighting spread fear through Nkemdolu like wildfire. His mother knows that something must be done soon, or she will lose her son completely to the war raging inside his divided soul. Obinna's mother reaches the limit of what any human heart can bear. She watches her son becoming less human every day, caught between two worlds and belonging to neither. That night, she prepares herself like a warrior going to battle. She grinds bitter leaf into paste and burns sweet incense that fills their hut with sacred smoke. She washes her feet with salt water and braids her hair tightly, the way women do before important ceremonies. Taking only a cow horn, a small bottle of palm oil, and one of Obinna's baby teeth that she had saved from his childhood, she walks toward Akpulu forest. Her steps are steady, her heart calm. She has made a decision that only a mother can make. At the forest edge, she stops and turns her face toward the star-filled sky. "If you will not return my son whole," she whispers to the spirits who dwell in darkness, "then give me the part of him that you have taken. Let me carry his burden." She steps into the forest, following the same path that Obinna had taken weeks before. Behind her, the village falls silent. Even the night insects stop their songs, as if nature itself holds its breath. The talking drums begin to beat again, but this time their rhythm is different. Slower. More respectful. As if they recognize that something sacred is happening. The people of Nkemdolu say that no mother enters Akpulu forest and returns unchanged. But Obinna's mother is not seeking to return unchanged. She is seeking to save her son, no matter the cost to herself. She walks deeper into the forest than any villager has gone in generations. The trees seem to part before her, creating a path that leads to the heart of the spiritual realm. At the base of an enormous tree whose trunk is carved with symbols from before written history, she finds what she is looking for. Curled inside a hollow at the base of the tree, like a child sleeping in his mother's arms, is a boy who looks exactly like Obinna. But this boy casts no shadow in the moonlight. His skin glows faintly, and his eyes hold the depth of someone who has seen beyond the world of the living. This is the part of her son that was left behind when greed split his soul in two. The part that has been calling out for home, causing death and chaos as it tries to rejoin its other half. She kneels beside the hollow tree and extends her hand toward the shadow boy. "Come, my child," she whispers. "Let me take you back where you belong." The boy opens his eyes and smiles. For the first time since entering the forest, he looks peaceful. From the shadows between the ancient trees, a gubba appears once more. The spirit guardian is even more imposing in the heart of his domain, his presence bending reality around him like heat waves. The very air grows thick with power. He swallowed both halves of the sacred kola nut, a gubba's voice echoes from everywhere and nowhere. One half gifted him with knowledge and power, but the other demanded payment in the form of his soul. The spiritual debt must be settled before balance can be restored. Obinna's mother does not flinch before the awesome spirit. She kneels in the sacred grove and speaks with the quiet strength that only mothers possess. "I brought him into this world with my blood and breath," she says. "Let me give him what was stolen. Let me pay the price that my son cannot pay." A gubba studies her for a long moment, his glowing eyes seeing into her heart. "Would you sacrifice your own voice so that his spirit may speak again? Would you take on his burden so that he might be whole?" Without hesitation, she nods. A mother's love knows no price too high. The spirit guardian holds out a gourd filled with liquid that seems to swallow light. She drinks deeply, feeling her voice leave her body like wind escaping through an open door. But something unexpected happens in the sacred grove. As Obinna's mother's voice flows out of her and into the spirit world, the ancient trees begin to sway in reverence. The talking drums beat slowly, not in warning this time, but in recognition of something rare and beautiful. A golden moth, glowing like a tiny piece of the sun, lands on her lips and rests there gently. Other forest spirits appear from between the trees, their forms shimmering with respect for the sacrifice they have witnessed. A gubba stares in wonder, then nods slowly. In all his centuries of guarding the forest, he has rarely seen love so pure that it transforms the very nature of a spiritual transaction. "Rare is the person who sacrifices without anger," he says, his voice filled with something that might be admiration. "Even rarer is the one who does so out of love rather than guilt or fear." He raises his hand, and a small red flame appears above his palm. The flame dances in the air, then flows gently into her throat like warm honey. To her amazement, she can speak again. Her voice returns as a whisper, weak but whole, "My son." The golden moth flutters around her head 3 times, then flies toward the village, carrying news of the miracle that love has created in the heart of the spirit world. As the drums rise in celebration across the forest, their joyful rhythm reaches Nkemdolu village. Obinna wakes in his bed, his mouth dry and his vision hazy, but feeling different than he has since his return from the forest. For the first time in weeks, the war inside his mind has stopped. The angry whispers from his other half have gone quiet. The invisible hands that controlled his fingers no longer force him to write names of death in the sand. Then he hears something that makes his heart leap, his mother's voice calling his name from outside their compound. "My son," she calls gently. "Come home." He springs from his sleeping mat and runs outside barefoot, dust flying behind him. At the edge of the forest, he sees her standing in the early morning light, whole and smiling and somehow more beautiful than he remembers. They collapse into each other's arms, mother and son reunited not just in body but in spirit. The village awakens to the sound of their joyful weeping, a sound that speaks of healing and hope. The forest spirits have accepted the mother's sacrifice and returned what was stolen. The debt has been paid, and balance has been restored to both worlds. In the months that follow, Obinna discovers that his voice has returned, but he has also gained something more valuable than supernatural powers. He has learned the difference between wisdom and knowledge, between earning something and stealing it. He becomes a storyteller, not because he possesses magical abilities, but because he has experienced both the cost of greed and the power of love. Children gather around him in the village square, eager to hear his words. They call him by a new name now, Oka Aichi, which means, the bringer of insight. But he knows that his greatest insights came not from the forest spirits, but from watching his mother's sacrifice. "The forest taught me many things," he begins his stories. "But nothing as important as what my mother taught the forest." The children lean forward, hungry for wisdom. Do not rush into mysteries with empty pockets and a loud mouth, he teaches them. A person who cannot carry silence will never hear true wisdom. Your ambition must learn patience, or it will devour your voice. He draws symbols in the sand as he speaks, but now they are symbols of teaching rather than supernatural power. Most importantly, he concludes, choose your hunger carefully. Are you hungry for glory, or are you hungry for peace? One evening, as Obinna finishes teaching a group of young boys about the dangers of spiritual greed, a familiar figure appears at the edge of the village square. It is Matsi Aika, the palm wine tapper who had offered him the split cola nut so many weeks ago. But now Aika looks different. The strange fire in his eyes has been replaced by something gentler, and he carries with him a traditional talking drum. "You have learned the lesson," Aika says, setting the drum down before Obinna. "Now you are ready to help others learn it too." Obinna understands that Aika has been testing young men for generations, offering them the choice between wisdom and power. Most, like Obinna, choose wrongly at first. But few are lucky enough to have mothers willing to pay the price for their mistakes. Obinna strikes the drum once, and from within comes a deep, harmonious sound. It is the combined voices of mother and son, now joined in perfect rhythm. The sound speaks of love that conquers greed, of wisdom that transforms knowledge into something beautiful. Aika smiles and nods. "Now you can teach others to choose more wisely than you did." The drum beats echo across Nkemdolu, carrying a message of hope to anyone who still dreams of easy power. At the next harvest festival, Nkemdolu holds a special celebration they call the Festival of Dust and Flame. It honors both the dangers of spiritual greed and the power of sacrificial love. Obinna's mother dances in the village square, her movements graceful and free. Her son sings beside her, his voice strong and clear. The talking drums sound throughout the celebration, but now their rhythm brings joy rather than fear. Children learn new songs about patience and wisdom. Elders share stories about the importance of earning rather than stealing spiritual gifts. Young men and women listen carefully, understanding that some prices are too high to pay, even for their dreams. At the end of the festival, the village carves a new proverb into the wooden gate that marks the entrance to Nkemdolu. The forest may take much, but it never forgets a mother's love. As the celebration continues into the night, Obinna stands with his mother, watching their community come together in gratitude and understanding. He knows now that true power comes not from supernatural abilities, but from the connections we build with each other. The drums play softly in the background, no longer calling anyone into the forest. They simply remind everyone that some gifts must be earned through patience, and some debts can only be paid through love. The forest sleeps peacefully, and the village dreams of wisdom rather than power.